Oh, thank you, Chungdam, for taking attendance. I was just going to do that. All right. Let's go ahead and get started. It's 11:06. If the others come in a little later, we'll accept them. But we're going to get started. You guys ready? Everybody good? Okay. All right. So we're going over C2 low and C2 mid. These are fairly similar programs. And they're based around, there we are. There's Alexandra.
Hi, sorry.
Hi, no problem. We were just getting started. So I was just saying C2 low and mid are fairly similar. They're based around projects. And that's kind of your goal. This program should be something that's fun for the kids. When you're teaching this, you want them to be excited about the topic, and you want them to focus on their output, right? The speaking and the writing. And so this is a real good opportunity for them to do that in a fun way. So keep that in mind whenever you're teaching this, that there are things they have to learn and the things we need to teach them, but this should be a fun class compared to the other classes. So let's start with objectives. So Donna, can you read the first objective for me?
To build individual points of view through analysis and evaluation of dual perspectives.
What do you think that means, Donna?
Just to like understand that you can understand like a topic or passage, that everyone's point of view might be different and that everyone has like a valid understanding of that.
Yeah, good. Yeah. So there are going to be lessons that kids are not interested in, right? There's going to be stuff about sports or video games, and there'll be kids who don't like those subjects, right? But our goal is to help them just see the value in that, even if it's not their taste, right? And this will help them understand others. This will help them build their own English. So, Ruved, can you read the second one for me?
To strengthen problem-solving skills and creative thinking through project-based learning.
Now, why would we want them to learn problem-solving skills, even though this is English?
For them to be able to think critically and apply their English to that thinking and express themselves.
Yeah, to help them express themselves, right? And that's the whole goal. That's the whole goal of problem solving in English teaching, right? If they can't figure out ways around saying certain words or phrases, then they struggle to speak. They struggle to write. And helping with that problem solving skill also helps them get past this hurdle. So, and Allie, can you do the last one for us?
To enhance background knowledge of various topics and build perspectives.
And why do these students need this background knowledge?
It's just only going to help them learn how to communicate about various topics that they encounter and on the TOEFL, or if they go to school at an American university or Western university or whatever.
Yeah, perfect. It also helps with their testing. One of the big problems that I've noticed with my upper level kids is they're reading about subjects they have no background knowledge in. And so while they understand some of the words, they can't contextualize it. So having all this extra background knowledge helps them create this world in their head. So any questions on those objectives? Pretty clear? Okay. So next I want to talk about the C2 low versus C2 mid. This is, there's not much difference, but there is a small difference. Here in low, we have 3-week units, and mid has 2-week units. And I'll show you guys this in a second. So 3 lessons per unit, 2 lessons per unit, one around a theme, and the other one has odd even weeks, right? And we're going to mainly focus on C2 mid because all the principles that work for C2 mid are in C2 low. You're just going to have to adjust your timing. And so that'll be the key there. So we'll focus on C2 mid. I'll show you how to change that timing a little later. But we'll get through all the ideas here in C2 mid. So I know Chungdam gives you guys the seg guys. Did you guys get those? Okay. I imagine you had to read through them and do the pre-test and all that. Okay. So those can be a little wordy. So my goal is to just kind of regularize them, make them more normal and like I've seen this a million times, and when I was new, I didn't understand it at all. This is just their learning flow. That we have an intent, right? We do our in-class parts, and then they go home and they do their I-learning, right? They do all these little things at home to help them out, and they come back to school and we go to the next part, right? The learning flow here is important though, because we do have these odd and even weeks, and they go over a little bit different stuff, right? So in these odd weeks, we have a lot of reading and listening and a small project. But in the even weeks, we have a big old project with very little reading and listening, right? And just that's the main point to take from this. So I built these time flows as well with different points, different purposes. So of course we start with admin, that's normal stuff. But the first 20 minutes is about connecting with the kids, connecting the idea, right? Then you're gonna get into your listening and your reading, and then finally your mini project, right? Notice the times are flexible, right? I've created these times based on the SEG guide, but what I do in actual class is not along this timing, right? I have to do it my way based on my kids, and I'm constantly changing for them. So I have kids that really struggle with listening. So we'll spend a long time on listening, but I have kids that are fast at reading. We're only going to take 20 minutes on reading, and then we have more time for the project, right? So if I have extra time, it all gets funneled to the project. The more time they have for that, the better they do at it, and the more comfortable they are with it. So while I have these times up here, while there's times in the SEG guides, you're going to have to make your own decisions on when things happen. My first term teaching this, I didn't do a good job. I was constantly struggling with time. So one of the things that I did was I did set out myself a schedule. And I started there, and I started moving and changing things as I needed them. So I sat there one day and I did I literally did a time schedule. So I know we had vocab tests at the beginning. So I set myself at 4:20, finish the vocab test and administrative work, right? I cut it to 15 minutes for connect, so 4:35 I have to be on the build, right? And so I just did that for myself, and over time it's more natural. I don't have to do that anymore. But if you guys find yourself struggling with time, you find yourself squishing too many things, just set yourself up time limits. Anybody been having trouble with time in their A2 or V1 class? Okay. Yeah, I know V1 can get really tough sometimes. A2 high as well. So just, yeah, got to do that for yourself. The C2 mid-even weeks are a little bit different. Remember, they're focused on that project. So your connect or your share time is a little shorter. You spend maybe about 20 minutes on the reading. Don't spend too long on that. And then give a lot of time for project. A ton of time for project. Kids are at varying levels of ability to do projects. You're going to have kids that are awesome at it. They come in, they know how to do PowerPoints, they know how to do nice scripts. And then you're going to have kids who can barely write 3 sentences. And you're going to have to make sure you have time for everybody. Right? And so there's a lot to do in here and a lot of guiding. So make sure you plan your time accordingly. And don't forget to plan this final time, present and evaluate. It's important that the kids have time to present. You're not rushing them through. I don't talk to your fellow teachers at your branches, and I guarantee you some of them have spent many classes rushing through presentations, trying to get kids through that gauntlet. Plan that time, right? Plan that time. But yeah, so that's the basics of timing it and everything. but I want to get through each of the pieces as well. So I'm going to start with connect. Connect is, I think, the most important part. For me, that's been the basis of success or failure. So what's the goal with this, TJ?
Connect to generate interest in the topic.
Yeah, so now we're going to do that through a bunch of stuff, right? Let's look at it right here. So we're looking at the book. You can see that we have Unit 1, Unit 2, Unit 1, Part 1, Part 2. So let's look at Connect. So we start with a landing page. I think you guys are familiar with these ideas. And you can start the discussion here. It's okay. I don't use a lot of this. I think that this page is good because it has those pictures. It has the title with an idea we're trying to explore. So if you want to use this page, use this page. But there's also the actual Connect page, which usually has some sort of chart for them. So yeah, pick and choose which one you think is best. I wouldn't spend too much time on both. If you're going to spend time on both, maybe 2 or 3 minutes on this landing page, just explaining the title, and then focus more on here, right? Because this is going to take them through topics and ideas that they need for the reading and for their projects. So on this landing page, we're going to deal with all these. While they provide pictures and you can use these pictures, right? What do you guys think the goal is? What do we? That's what it's goal. But I'm sorry. What do you think we're doing here?
I just want to generate discussion so that the kids can start thinking about the topic.
Yeah, exactly, right? So we can use these pictures, we can use the chart as if that works for you and your kids. I think a lot of teachers insert multiple media cards here. This is the best place for pictures, video, all that good stuff. I put media cards in for this. So instead of showing them the chart, which is kind of hard to understand, I'm going to show them this, right? What makes a story high fantasy, take them through the ideas, supernatural powers, fantastic places, fantastic creatures, good versus evil, right? So this is a lot easier for them to understand than this chart, right? My advice is if you can have pictures, have pictures. The chart's great and it's nice, but I just find that most kids don't think that way. Most of our kids. Now, there are some kids who see this and understand it immediately, but I think the vast majority prefer that visual media. I also like to stick in a couple videos, right? For this one, I put in a review video to help the kids. So we talked about what high fantasy is, and then I'll show them this clip from Chronicles of Narnia, and then they can use that to explain some of the terms that we talked about. Maybe the fantastic worlds, right? Honestly, I need to replace that. I think I want to put something more fantastical, but for now that works. So any questions about this page, this Connect page? Am I moving too fast or too slow for anybody? Okay, all right. If I am, just let me know. I'll adjust. So Connect is pretty straightforward. Discussion, get kids excited. That takes us to our build page. And this is more where we get into the nuts and bolts of skills, right? So Mark, what is our goal here?
Explore the topic and identify key points when listening.
Yes. So this is all about this knowledge map. And you can see how I've marked it here. So this starts with a knowledge map, and it has a piece of audio that you listen to, right? So usually there's a picture. This picture is generic. I usually ignore it completely. As soon as we get in here, I start them on the knowledge map. I have them look at it. I have them read over it, right? I want them to read it first. And then I start working through the knowledge map with them focusing on keywords and question words. So when I'm going through here, I want to find the keywords. I ask them what they are, right? So what's a keyword for you guys? TJ, what's a keyword?
In what we always use or in this context?
What is a keyword? A keyword. What's that idea?
Oh, a keyword is a word that, like I usually call like the main idea or something that points to kind of the greater theme of what we're discussing.
Right. That's how we use it normally, right? When we're talking about these questions for keywords, right? We're actually just looking for something that's easy to hear, something that will guide us to that information that isn't too common, right? So when we're having them listen for these keywords, we're trying to have them listen for unique words, right? This whole thing is about fantasy. It's about novels, right? So we don't want those keywords. They're too common. While those are actually the main part of this, right? I instead have the kids focus on sold, right? Because they're only going to hear this word once or some version of this word once. Does that make sense? So when I go through this and prepare this knowledge map with them, I always focus on the more unusual words as their keywords, because that's going to be where they trigger their ears, right? Also make sure they understand the question words, right? One of the things that I think a lot of teachers really don't focus on is this word what, right? We can't just say what, right? What is never singular when we're dealing with questions. And I think a lot of us have a bad habit of just going, what are some novels, right? But what can be anything, what reason, what person, what place. So it's important to make sure the kids also know that what has some other word that goes with it. And so when I guide them through this, I'm always making sure they're doing that. Because when they do their tests, when they get those detailed questions, this is going to help them so much. So much. Just knowing what they're looking for is a huge deal. So you will have this audio in here. Oh, I can't scroll up. So I've marked this right here. I shouldn't use this tool, but I use it all the time. It's just easier than the Zoom tool. So
fantasy is everywhere. Just look at the best-selling books. It's all over movies and even television too. What do I mean by fantasy? Well, it's a kind of fiction that involves the supernatural.
So this is going to start with an introduction we don't really need, right? And so when we're having the kids listening, they're listening for the words and the organization, right? So the first thing we're going to have them listen for is novels, right? So we've gone through everything. Now they're listening for that word novels. Mm-hmm.
In fantasy, what is normally impossible happens all the time. Fantasy stories are very popular. They can be found in various forms of entertainment. Novels are one form of...
So novels, right? So we've listened to that. We got 27 seconds before we actually get to the thing we need. So one trick I use to help the kids make sure they're listening is I highlight this word novels. I say, when you hear this word novels, I want everybody to raise their hand, right? This is just a check to make sure they're listening, make sure they're listening for this keyword. And usually it works really well. And they almost always, half the kids figure it out. Some kids miss it. But then the kid's like, oh no, I should pay attention. So yeah, we just kind of listen for that word. And then I'm like, okay, so now we're listening for these questions. We already figured out what our keywords were. We already figured out what our words are. Then I continue it on.
Entertainment, where we often find fantasy stories. Fantasy novels are sold all over the world.
So we can see fantasy novels are sold all over the world, right? Clearly that keyword hits. We hear where they are, right? And continue on like that, okay? Any questions on this page? Okay. All right. If you have questions at the end as well, I'll answer anything you got.
Sorry, really quickly. So they're answering every single question.
Every single question.
Okay.
And that's why it can take so long. But the first week you definitely want to guide them through this, maybe the first 2 or 3 weeks. So by the 5th week, they should have a basic idea and be able to at least try to do it on their own. Especially at this level, Terra Bridge. By the time they're par birdie, after the first week, you shouldn't have to explain this again. However, for the low, you may have to explain this for several weeks in a row, right? So the mega gigas, they're just babies, you know. So they just need more. Good question, thanks. All right, I'm gonna go on to the next one. So the next one is very similar, and it's the understand page. You're gonna have a version of this in even and odd weeks, right? They have different purposes, but this one's more focused on understanding and getting kids more perspective on that topic, whatever that topic is, right? So let's jump back to this. So it's the same thing that we did with listening, except for doing it with reading. So again, you have a knowledge map, and they're looking for keywords, right? So what is possible in a magical world, right? Right. Question word, what? Possible, right? Magical world is the unusual thing that we're going to find, right? And just kind of guide them through that. Notice that there are 3 here. Point that out to them. Don't just assume they'll know it, because a lot of kids will find one and then they'll just be done. So make sure you're very clear with how many there are. Again, after like maybe after week 3, they should be able to do that on their own. So they're going to go take this possible magical world. There's a passage down lower, right? We have magical powers. This is the section that we wanted. We're going to look for magical world, and notice that some of them don't have the exact same language, but they have similar language. And this is something we want the kids to pick up on. So make sure you're telling them if they didn't figure it out, right? Make sure letting them know, making sure that they realize that sometimes it's going to be the idea, not the actual words. So what is possible? Anything is possible. So I think that page is pretty much the same as the last page, except for it's reading versus listening. Any questions on this page? Okay, all right, let's get to the main part. So here in even weeks, we have a mini project. This is going to be pretty simple. It's going to be a small version of something. I generally do the micro projects as they're written. I find that they are pretty good across the board. There are a few that are not that great, and you'll have to decide that for yourself and your students. For this micro project, I like this one a lot. You're going to create a hybrid fantasy story. So you just take them through the steps. Very simple. Just follow the guide. Look at the example, help brainstorm ideas for your story. Right? So they have these examples for them. And then step 2, we want to create our own, right? You should be doing this with the kids. Let it be 10 minutes. However, sometimes you're going to have kids that don't want to say anything, especially those middle school kids usually, or lower level kids who maybe leveled up beyond their ability. They don't want to talk, right? And this is your goal, is to get them talking as best you can. Now, if they're really struggling with it, you might need to guide them a bit, right? Good versus evil. So what's a good guy, right? Are you a good guy? Just let them get into it. Make sure that they're into it. What are some magical powers? Oh man, I watched this movie yesterday. What was I watching? So I think I was watching Fast and Furious, but they had magical powers of crashing cars and getting out. Right? Try to get movies that are so similar to them, right? Frozen. What are the magical powers in Frozen? Oh, she has ice powers, right? What are the magical powers in Minions? I think they grow big. They grew big at one point. It's okay to use movies and things that you know to help them connect with the stuff, especially if they're not opening up. My advice is, if you guys don't watch a lot of kids movies, go watch a bunch of kids movies. Sit there on Netflix, Disney Plus, watch that stuff. Watch what they're watching, and that'll help you connect with them. Pay attention to what they're talking about in class. They're going to be talking about certain video games, K-pop stars, and movies, and just go watch them. Sit there and watch an episode of Doraemon, and it's not. I don't like Doraemon. It's not fun, but knowing who those characters are, I can relate to my kids a little better. So that's where your background knowledge helps them. So again, just follow this, elicit information from the kids. Step 3, you're going to give them time. Make sure you give them enough time. Don't give them too little time, and don't rush them. Don't push them too hard. It's generally good to push kids a little bit, right? Just to challenge them, right? But what happens is a lot of the kids end up doing less, just not doing enough, and then they're disappointed. And the next time, they're less willing and less wanting to do the projects. So this is a point you really want to give them enough time. You want to make sure that they can do their best. Avoid that disappointment. But so in this part, you guys are on Zoom, I assume, right? Everybody still on Zoom?
No, we're back in the classroom.
You guys are back in class? Oh, man.
This
Today's
week,
my first day in
class.
class, actually.
Yeah,
Oh,
every class.
we might be back today, too. I don't know. They haven't told us yet. Well, some of our kids have been back, but I haven't been lucky enough. I've been on Zoom the whole time. If you're on the tablets, there's a lot of cool project apps. My advice, play around with them. Maybe get together with a couple of your other teachers, maybe especially if you got other new teachers, and set up a fake class and play with the projects, the project tools, right? And so that's what I actually want to talk about now is those projects, right? Some cool stuff there that make the kids a lot more excited. So we have some project tips. Ruved, can you read these tips for us?
Adapt to the students. Students should have fun, develop a skill, give students space, but not too much space.
Thank you. Right. So adapting to the students, what do I mean by adapting to the students?
Like you said already, like knowing what their interests are, paying attention to what they're talking about, and adjusting your teaching style so it suits their needs.
Yes, perfectly. Right. The other part of that is adapting to their skills. Right. And now in a perfect world, every kid would be perfectly skilled for every level. But we know if you've all taught for at least 3 months, right? You all know that there are kids that are above their level and there are kids that are below their level. So make sure you are adapting your content as well. So, Ali, what do we mean by students should have fun?
Engage them, make that so it's entertaining, either from topics that you're choosing for the projects or how you want them to work on the projects, and have them interact more with themselves, with the other students.
Yes, interaction is really important. And this is where the groups come in. Now, not every project will be groups. It's good to have a variety, right? Do couples and do singles. But yeah, this is a big time for them to talk and play with each other, which is a huge skill, being able to talk to somebody else who's also talking in their second language, right? Because they're not going to talk perfectly and they have to figure that out. So yeah, we really want them to have fun. This should be something that they look forward to every week. It should be a carrot that lets them get through the rest of work. We're talking about developing a skill. I'm not going to ask you guys to explain that. Obviously, we want them to develop all these different skills, right? The writing, the speaking, the reading and listening. So this incorporates all of that. Donna, what do I mean by give students space but not too much space?
So like obviously you have to let them be independent and do their project, but still watching and making sure that they're doing the project.
Yeah. In my time teaching, and I've been both of these, but I've also ran into teachers who were on both sides of this, where they're micromanagers, right? They're just constantly on the kids. You should put the right there, right? Leave it alone for a little bit, right? Let them have space to do their own stuff, right? You don't need to correct every little piece of grammar while they're working. Just hit on a couple major points, right? But I've also seen the other side of where you have teachers who are completely blasé. They just let the kids have an hour. They don't even pay attention to what the kids are doing. And then after an hour, they're like, what? Why is your project all messed up? Why did you write only 2 sentences? Right? Because they weren't paying attention to what the kids are doing. They weren't keeping them on task. Had they paid attention, they would have noticed that 20 minutes in, the kids were arguing about who's doing what job. And 40 minutes in, they were still arguing about who's doing what job, right? It's important to pay attention to what your kids are doing. You need to give them space, but you do need to proctor. You need to come help them find solutions when they run into a problem, even if they don't ask. But you also need to be there when they do ask for a problem. Be careful with that side as well. Some kids will become too dependent on you to answer things for them. Do your best to guide them towards their own answers. Reply with a question, right? Now, if it's something they can't deal with, or it's like an argument between kids, yeah, get in there and mediate and figure that out. But sometimes they'll just ask you, what's a fantastical creature? I don't know, but I might look at Google, right? Just kind of get them to start finding answers on their own, but guide them towards where to get those answers. But yeah, so that's the main part of projects. So with that, I do want to look at the text. So we do a mini project in odd weeks, but the even weeks, we do that big project, right? So we start with share. Share is going to give us a perspective on this topic. Here we were talking about fantasy, and now we're talking about the fantasy games, right? So they gave a little bit more clarity, a little bit more focus, or they're going to give a contrast. So in some of the weeks, they'll talk about the benefits of gene doping. And the other week, they're going to talk about the problems with gene doping, right? So it's usually a contrast or a further clarification. But again, I only spend about 5 minutes on this. I do a small review. No, it's not it. I think a review is here. Yeah, I do a small review on terms, ideas, and that's about it. I spend 10, 20 minutes, doing this, right? This is important. It gives them perspective on that project. But then I spend most of that time with this project, right? So in the even weeks, if the faster I can get to project, the better, because that means the better quality that they put out. But you want to go through every step. So here we have a project. TJ, can you read this project for us?
Sure. For today's project, imagine your parents have joined forces with the parents of your group members. They have decided to forbid all of you from playing online fantasy games. Create a plan to change your parents' mind.
Okay. So this is a good project. This is okay project, right? Some kids are going to be okay with this. Some kids are going to find it boring.
Yeah, I think it's boring.
Yeah, I think it's boring. So the thing here is you want to be clear, right? Whatever your project is, you should be clear on what the project is. They should know the exact details, what you're doing. Now, I don't like this project very much, so I create an alternate project, right? But if you create an alternate project, you have to come up with a card. You have to. Never, never, never neglect this card, because this is something the kids can write down. Even if you have, oh, why is the card not working? Oh, Changdam.
I hate when this happens.
Yeah, it happens. Oh, there it goes. It's just a delay. But yeah, so I've created a card. I gave them what we're doing, right? This is more for you guys. I'm actually probably going to I would probably actually put these on multiple pages, and we would go through them, and I'll talk about that in a second. But then I put the steps. What are we doing in each step, right? Kids need these guides. If you don't do these guides, kids are going to just spend way too long on one part. They're going to have, this one's the worst, organizing your groups into jobs. That one, especially for like Mega Giga, is just so frustrating. They will spend 20 minutes doing this. So what I do to help that is I assign leaders. And I'm like, all right, it's your choice. You choose. Whatever you say goes. Next time somebody else is leader. That usually fixes it. Usually. But yeah, make sure they have those clear steps, right? It's okay to have alternate projects. Again, the goal is fun, right? The goal is building skills. If you're doing those two things, should be fine. And most FMs and BMs won't complain. So, but before you do these alternate projects, make sure it's okay with your FM. Don't just assume, right? Especially as you guys are a bit newer. Talk to your FM first and see if that's okay. From my experience, most FMs are okay with it, as long as it's good and follows certain procedures. So here I actually do this. This is what I really do in this class. I have them build their own fantasy game. I think it's a lot more fun. And it helps them practice PowerPoints in week 1, which we can use later through the term. So I'll also have them do slide presentations, right? So I'll take you through that later, but what's
This is a random question, but what do
Mhm.
you have them use when you do the slide presentations?
Google Slides.
Okay, you do.
Yeah,
You
so I
just
have
have
a
your own Gmail, or do you make like?
yeah, I have this is my Gmail. Where's the other one? So I have a
Allie.
Gmail set up for them that they can log into.
Okay, so you said okay, like yeah, okay, you use it. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, Tim
Allie.
Story class.
On our tabs, Allie, there's a program they can use that connects to like slides that they can send you. I'll show you later at the branch.
Yeah, but they
Yeah.
those. You can't save those. That's why I don't like it. I think it goes away.
It goes away. And that's my problem is they can't. You should be able to save those though, right? If they send it to you.
Yeah, you can save
Yeah.
them.
You can save them on your tablet. Now they can't save them. So like if you're doing multi-week projects, it's not the best.
Yeah. Okay.
And sometimes I'll just for fun we'll do like a 2-week project. And that helps break things up a little bit. And so that's why I use slides. They can always get into the slide. I have had kids that go home and work on it between the weeks, or like we finish presenting it and I'll come back and I'll look at it and there's like extra work done on it.
Yeah,
Some kids are like that. I had one girl, Jessica, I remember she sat there for the first term and she would do all the slides. So she would take her slide, she would save it and she'd take it home. And then she would practice it. After like 2 terms, she was really good at slides. Just some kids are like that. Yeah, use whatever programs are comfortable for you and your kids. For me, Google Slides has been the main thing. I have my kids. Sometimes I'll, if I give them a slide presentation though, I create a template.
Mhm.
I never just give them a blank presentation. And then so I have a template and make a copy. And they'll come up with whatever they come up with. This was not that great, but this one was a bit better. And it just depends on your kids. So yeah, so make sure you have the tools, use the tools that you need. So let's break this down into the pieces. Yeah. So that's the basic idea of projects, is getting that, but you do have to go through the steps. So these steps are designed for this project, right? This ideate portion, right? I have it. If you guys want this slide presentation, you can have it. But here we're just trying to brainstorm ideas. We're trying to get them to have the building blocks for their project, right? So when we're here, they guide us through this. If you're using this project, this is the best part about using their project, right? Is they have clear steps that you can use to guide them, right? Set kids 2-3 minutes, 5 minutes, whatever it takes to fill this out together as a group, right? You know, and go through each piece. Again, that's the value of theirs. If you don't use their stuff, you need to come up with this on your own. So that project that I had right here, what I probably would do is break these off as those brainstorming pieces. So I probably make another page. All right, guys, you have 2 minutes to come up with the goal of your game. What are you guys going to do for your game? When they come back, I have them share ideas. Then we do, okay, so let's break off into groups and come up with powers. Right? Or I may not break off into groups for this one. I might do this on the whiteboard, right? Or the actual whiteboard in class even. And all right, guys, let's come up with a bunch of superpowers, right? And we just come up with as many superpowers as we can think of for about 2 or 3 minutes. I do try to vary this so that it's more interesting for them. Then we get into, this is more ideate, and materialize is the key. So materialize is where they're actually building their presentation. Now this page is useful sometimes, but not useful all the time. In the materialize page, materialize is basically giving them time to do their project, right? But on this page, they have some sentences or some chunks that are helpful. Our plan is to blah, 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 blah. We need to show our parents that blah, blah, blah. This is great. If you want, you can come up with these for your own projects as well, right? Some phrases that might help them build their projects. So this is good because every project should have a script. Every project. I push that on my kids hard. We might create a PowerPoint, but you still need to have a script. So having a group of like useful sentences or useful chunks will help them. But then give them time. Evaluate. They're going to present, right? They're going to present, and then you need to give them feedback. So when we're giving kids feedback, how do we do that? What should we be telling them? Allie was
Things they do well and something they should work on.
Yeah. Start with the well. Hey, what's the sandwiching, right?
Mm-hmm.
Anybody take marketing at all? The sandwich method. It's, I think, as far as speech and education, marketing, all that stuff, right? Say something good, to give criticism, say something good, right? Sandwich it. It works. The kids are not old enough to see through what you're doing. Usually, there are some smarter kids that do figure it out, but most of the kids are okay with it, even if they know. So start with some things they did good, right? Now, you want to focus on the English as much as you can, right? But early on, I also focus on presentation skills, right? Right? The big problem right now is people talking loud enough because we have like the masks on and the plastic sheets, and they just, nope, I swear they're whispering all the time. But yeah, so make sure they're speaking loud enough. Make sure they're standing and actually doing your presentation, not stopping and laughing about something in the middle. Just the basics, you know. So it's okay to get on to them about presentation, but to focus on the English, right? How was the grammar? How was their delivery? Did they enunciate, right? And then focus on the value of the ideas they gave, right? Don't knock their ideas, but do help them understand, did it tell me why, right? These business plans we worked on here, they screwed up the customer, kind of, right? Customers that want clean air. I think everybody wants, like, customers that are comfortable about having masks on their face, they really didn't understand what to do about the customer section, and that might have been my clarity. But when I went over it, I definitely gave this as one of their negatives. Like, yeah, this is not what was supposed to be the customer. You talking about customers who want clean air, but they were selling a robot for planting trees, right? And so I helped them try to connect what's wrong with that and what's right with that. Okay. So like they had and they had another invention that they cut out. They had an invention where it was a mask that filters, right? And that was good. It was a good customer, but they're talking about big shields, like a shield you put over a city, and robots for planting trees. And they're like, the customer is anybody who wants clean air, right? Obviously, I'm not going to buy that for my house. I'm not going to buy a shield for my house. A city might buy that, and so getting them to get that relationship, whether it's cause and effect, that's the big one usually, is cause and effect. Comparing, contrasting, right? Those relationships, they need to figure those out. So it's okay to hit content, but make sure it's about connecting the content, not about knocking their ideas. And it's really easy to do that. Be careful. Be careful when you're giving this feedback, because you can hurt feelings. Kids are sensitive and soft. And I know I tend to be a hard guy sometimes. And so it's easy to hurt their feelings. If you do hurt their feelings, make sure you talk to them. Make sure you tell them, hey, it's not personal. We're just trying to give you feedback. You can do better next time, all that good stuff. I think those were the main things I wanted to go to. Sorry, I was going fast because we have an hour to go through this, and I want to make sure I get through as much as possible. So quickly, C2 low, it's very similar. It's almost the same thing, except for you have everything shoved into 1 hour, into 3 hours, which makes it tougher in a certain way, right? It's a timing trouble. The content's the same, but the timing is so much more difficult. So here in C2 low, it's a similar workflow, right? But instead of having those 2 weeks, we just have the 1 week that has topic, reading, listing, and project. So you're going to want to time this correctly as best you can. I think this is a fair amount of time. I think this is a solid grouping of time for this. This is from the SIG guide, and I find that that's relatively right. Depending on kids. I've had kids that take a long time on reading, build and understand. But I also have kids that do short, so just got to play on them. If you need extra time from here, cut connect. Spend 10 minutes on connect. Don't spend as long, right? Because you're going to need this time. You're going to need this time, and you always need the project time. And that's going to be the key here. Just make sure you know where to cut. If you have kids that are taking too long, cut connect time. Who has vocab tests prior to the start of class? Okay. All right. Yeah. Okay. We all do. Okay. Yeah. So you're also going to count for that time. You could, 20 minutes, right? So if I take 5 from here, or even 10, I might even just go ahead and put 10 here, right? And then if I can steal 5 from understand, maybe, and then maybe 5 from the project, right? So as you're timing it, take that into account as well. Steal time from different ones. But timing here is huge. So just so you guys can see it, let's go to C2 Giga. I think that's good. So you can see here, instead of the 2 lessons in the same idea, we have 3 lessons in the same unit, but they're unified idea, right? Made to shop, logo, power, business platform. These are all marketing things, right? Technology in the concert hall, Too Beautiful to Eat, Unnatural Creations. These are all unusual types of art, right? Plastic teams, extreme fasting, decorating yourself. This is all about beauty, right? So again, they're just the unified themes, but they have their own lesson. So let's click on logo power. So logo power still starts out the same, right? This is low, same idea. They don't usually have the chart, they'll have pictures, but still you should have your own stuff for the kids, right? I take them through logos. Who recognizes these logos, right? Same ideas. Listening, same thing. Make sure you get those markings. Go through this with them. Reading, same thing as mid. And then the project. The project's the same, but again, it's just a time thing, right? My advice in general, I do keep with these giga and mega projects. I don't change them very much because I just don't want to mess up the timing. It's sometimes so hard to get a giga student and a mega student through this. I would just rather go with it. And unless I know that I can create it and make it tight and fully understandable, I'm not going to do it. Yeah, but that's low. It's the same thing we just did, except for everything squished. Any questions on anything? All right. Well, if you guys have any questions, feel free to email me. I'll go ahead and put my email in the chat. You guys may already have it. Chat window open up. All right. So if you guys need anything from me, if you got any questions, anything that I didn't cover correctly or well enough, please email it. If you want any of the materials that we used, I'll send that to you. Okay. All right, guys. I think that's it for us. I'll go ahead and get into my C2 debate class as well. Anybody coming on to C2 debate? That's great. We'll see you there. So I'm going to go ahead and end this. I hope you guys have a great day. All right.
Talk to you soon.
Thanks for everything.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you.
See y'all soon.
Bye.